Hi everyone, welcome back to CSharpCorner live show. I'm host Stephen Simon, and we are back with another episode of CSharpCorner MVP show. If you're joining us for the very first time, we do this live show every day, and I often say that we do so many live shows that we stream 8 days in a week. Can you even imagine that? We do so many live shows and conferences. For the year 2021, we are committed to 21 conferences, and I think we will even reach 25 conferences. I don't know how I'm doing it. I'm so lonely. But all right, so one thing but what we did for the month of May, that we really dropped the number for live shows and conferences as we now focus on helping people here in India who are suffering from COVID. We are helping them with oxygen cans, food supplies, shelter, ambulance, and any way possible. So our team at C Sharp Corner are not much focused for the live shows and other stuff that we do, and we are using all our forces to go ahead and help people who are in need. There are many people dying in India. The other day it was around, if I'm not wrong, 500, around 5 lakhs people died. I don't know how much that's an international number. 5 lakhs people died in just one day, and the daily cases that we get is close to 400,000. So, people watching across the globe, please stay safe. The COVID is still not gone. Take good care of yourself. Wear mask. Have a social distance, and yeah, this time is tough, and this shall go too. With that, I'm really excited for this show today as I get to host. I can say my old mate, someone I met online, right? All these pandemic friends that I made through these virtual meetings. It's going to be a really exciting show. He is Mustafa. He's both Microsoft MVP and C CharpCorner MVP. We're going to talk a lot more about him, but a quick general announcement that I would definitely like to do is on every Monday, we do Azure AI show, that where we talk about the entire ecosystem of Azure. It may be Azure ML, ML Ops, and all that. Then on Tuesday, we have Product Showcase show or Coffee with Pros. Product Showcase is where we feature a particular product. I think in the coming weeks, we're going to talk about an AI product. Then in the Coffee with Pros is more like a simple video podcast, chit chat, kind of not technical. I kind of like that show. Then on Wednesday, we do MVP show. The time is changed, right? We are a little early today. It's not 10 a.m., but 9 a.m. Then on Wednesday, again, we do bi-weekly an AI photo show that's run by Microsoft 2 AI MVPs, Ipadi and Hokan. They talk about all you need to know about data science. They have covered mathematics, and now they're talking about R and Python. Then on Thursday, we have a bit of AI show that's by Amy Boyd and Hank. They are cloud advocates at Microsoft. Every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Indian time zone, they interview one of the guests from the AI field. They talk about their job, some really cool questions, and the best part is after the live show ends, they also have an Microsoft Teams meeting where you can go ahead and talk to speakers, talk to hosts, and just actually chat with them. Right? That's pretty cool. They call it AI Cafe. I really love that. Then on Thursday, we have Ask Me Anything shows. It's one of the popular shows. We have crossed well over like 33, 34 episodes, where we invite people, do a talk show, followed by some slides and demos. It's still not over yet, right? I cannot stop announcing the live shows that we do. On Fridays, we do growth mindset shows at 12 p.m. Eastern. Again, we are just focused to go ahead and promote people for awareness for the COVID. The last week was we did talk about how you can go ahead and take help from the local authorities and maybe even help them. So that's what we're doing with that show these days. And the final one that we have is Rocking the Code World with .NET Dave, that streams every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Mind it, it's 10 a.m. Pacific, where David, who's I think 14 times Microsoft MVP and interviews people from the .NET ecosystem. He has interviewed Scott Hunter, Kendra Heavens, Matt Stodgerson, Caitlin Dollard, Jeremy Lickness, and many other amazing guys. Yeah, and we have some really amazing conferences coming up too. So just stay tuned at C CharpCorner and also on our social media platforms. Hi Deepak, welcome. Good evening. Yeah, it's evening here in India. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and talk about today's show. For today's guest, we have Mustafa. Mustafa is both, as I said, Microsoft MVP and C CharpCorner MVP, and I believe he's a C solution architect. You can often find him speaking in many virtual conferences and online events. behind the scenes, he did say that he doesn't post all of them. So I just don't know how many events he are doing. Okay. So he's a great community leader. I'm meeting him after a long time, and I'm really excited for him. So let's go and invite our speaker, guest actually, Mustafa. Hi, Mustafa. Welcome to
Hello.
CSharpCorner MVP show. How are you doing?
Waiting for you to announce me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to be on the show. I learned a lot of new things. I did not know that you have like a stream every day. I wasn't aware of that. That's so cool. Like, I don't know how you manage to do it every single day. It's crazy.
Yeah, me too. I too don't know how I do it.
As you said, I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of conferences, but having a show every day, and that's totally another level.
Yeah, and getting guests is sometimes challenging, right?
Yeah.
Calendars are tough. So glad that you accepted the invitation, Mustafa. Really appreciate it. Where are you joining us from?
I'm located in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Okay, I don't know what you just said. I've never. This is a very unique place, right?
So maybe I repeat. Where I'm located, where I live, is Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That's where I live.
Okay. That's a quite a unique place. I hope I get to visit that place someday. Right?
Yeah, I hope. Like, I usually travel a lot, both for work and for conferences. Unfortunately, this last year and a half, everything went crazy. But I hope that this will soon be behind us. And I met a lot of like really nice, cool people, you included, last year. So I'm really hoping that this will go away and that I will be able to travel to real events and visit you at your home.
Yeah, at your home, as you said, since you're a CSharpCorner MVP, right? We do this annual developer conference every year here in India. Around 2,500 people join it, and it's always free for CSharpCorner MVP. So we would love to host you here in India, right? You're traveling here in India, so
I'm really like, once this is behind us and once we start really traveling again, I would really be happy. I didn't have a chance to visit India yet, but I really hope this will come to pass relatively soon. Let's hope next year.
Yeah. All right, Mustafa. So you are an MVP, right? Let's talk about a little bit about an MVP. Usually, whenever we go ahead, even someone who is not an MVP, right, who doesn't understand MVP, when they hear the CSharpCorner MVP or Microsoft MVP, the very first thought that they get, hey, you guys work for Microsoft, right? That is the very first thing. Even now in the comments, I get it. So could you give a quick brief on what is an MVP anyway?
So as you said, I have both Microsoft MVP and CSharpCorner MVP award I got these recent years, and that's correct. When people say Microsoft MVP, they assume I'm with Microsoft. That's not true. I'm just like fan of their technology. I like using their tech, and MVP is basically it comes from community. It's a reward. It's appreciation for your effort to help others to gain knowledge. So that's what I see the MVP award stemming from. I got over the years. I've been in this business for a long time, and I got a lot of those like awards or something. But MVP, both CSharpCorner and Microsoft MVP awards, really have a special meaning to me because they are part of my community activity. They are part of me helping others learn what I already know. So that's something really cool, and that's what I really love about this MVP part.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the community, right? Anything that you do beyond your day-to-day job to go ahead and help people, right? And that's like, how. Yeah.
One really cool, like the proudest moment of my life was like that was December 2019, just before everything started. I was in a conference in Prague, and after my session, after I did the session, and I think this was similar to, no, it was Azure and databases, but never mind. I thought maybe it's a similar session to this one, but it's not. So after the session, the guy walks up to me and says, okay, I just wanted to thank you. I read your book, and because of that book, I got my current job. That was kind of the proudest moment of my life. I felt like I really helped someone. Someone really came up to me and said, I got a job because I read something you wrote. That was so cool. And that's what that MVP stands for, like helping people. And that's what I'm really proud for the MVP awards as well.
Yeah, definitely. It always feels good. You don't even actually get to know that how many people you have helped, right? When you go in and write articles, videos, and write books, you don't even get an idea to how many people you have helped.
I have no idea.
One day, if someone just reaches out to you that, hey, that thing that you posted or that article, that book really helped me a lot. So it's always good to get to hear from the people who read our content. Also, Mustafa, you did mention about the book, right? And I know you love to write books.
Yeah,
right?
I did 6-7 right now. I'm just writing a new one.
Okay. I'm really excited to go ahead and read that book when it gets completed, right? So Mustafa, without any further ado, right? So today's topic is about actually what today's topic is actually. I don't see.
So we are going to talk about containers in Azure. Like everyone is aware that containers are a really cool thing, and everyone is talking about it. And usually not aware, like we are not aware of all what containers are actually helping us with. It's we are going to discuss why we want containers in the first place, and when it comes to Azure, it's really cool place for containers. We have several different options. We can go with different types of containers, different setups, different services. So we're going to discuss what are our options out there, and maybe like also explain a bit how to choose the proper thing for you, like what do you want to use, how do you want to use it, and so on. And finally, once we go through the container setup and everything, we're also going to show how to use Azure DevOps to set up CI/CD pipeline for your containers so you can deploy them fast and easy.
That sounds interesting, right? So everyone who's watching, if you have any questions throughout the session, right, just keep the comments coming in. I will make sure that we take it towards the end. I think Mustafa will be more than happy to go in and answer them, right? So without any further ado, Mustafa, I can go ahead and add your screen, right? And feel free to go ahead and get started whenever you want.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So as we said, topic is containers in Azure, and we are going to walk. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to explain how and why. We kind of already did explanation on who I am, so I'm not going to lose any more time on it. So before we begin, before we step into the containers, let's see why containers in the first place. Why do we actually need them? Why did we want to use? Who came up with the containers? So what questions do containers answer? They remove that it works on my machine thing. I've been in this industry for a very long time. I've been working with different technologies, different setups, different methodologies over the years. And I would be a very rich man if I got like $1 for every time I heard it works on my machine. So containers are there to eliminate this part, it works on my machine. They say like the how containers came to work is like when client was complaining that application is not working and the developer said it works on developer's machine, the company just decided we'll ship the developer's machine and our clients can use that. So basically, that's where idea for the containers come from in any place. So another thing is that with containers, we want every environment to look the same. We want every environment to be exact replica of the previous one. We want to always have the same settings, same configuration, so that we know that we are not depending on any of the system variables for the solution to work. We also have options to have increased velocity. We can make containers run anywhere. It's basically, that's really cool thing about containers. They can run on anything and where they actually can run. So there are several options for the containers to run. We can run them on Linux. We can run them on Windows. We can run them on any of the clouds. And this is also really important part on why we want to do containers in the first place, because having containers running on multiple platforms and on multiple clouds removes the dependency on specific cloud provider. We are not locking ourselves in with some specific cloud solution provider solutions, so we cannot move anywhere. A lot of companies are like hesitant in engaging with cloud because they don't want to be locked in. Like if I will start using any of the clouds and I start using their specific solutions, I cannot move anywhere from there. And they can like blackmail me. They can increase the prices. They can do whatever they want. I cannot move from there because my solution will not work anywhere else. With containers, we are eliminating that threat. You don't have to be concerned about what kind of setup, what kind of different options cloud solution providers offer. We can basically use containers and move them anywhere. Like if I have a container on Azure, I can just easily pick it up and redeploy to AWS in a matter of few minutes. Or I can just pick it up from AWS and then move it to Google Cloud as well. That's what this container option gives us. It's a multi-cloud approach where we can just walk from one cloud to another with any constraints. And finally, also it's really cool that we can run containers on different devices. We have option to run it on drones, Raspberry Pis, any of the IoT devices. So it's also a really cool thing, and it's also a really cool option on how you can use the setup. Now, how do containers compare to virtual machines? This is something I got a lot over the years. The question I had, especially in the beginning of the containers, is, well, we have virtual machines. Why do we need containers in the first place? Well, there's a big difference. So what happens with the containers, like with the virtual machines, sorry. With virtual machines, we are sharing infrastructure. And then on top of that, we are sharing host operating system. So we have a hypervisor. It can be Hyper-V or VMware or whatever. And on top of the hypervisor, we have a guest operating system, and then all the libraries, binaries, and apps that we want to be run on top of that virtual machine. But notice here that everything from hypervisor up is unique to that virtual machine. So each virtual machine has its own operating system, has its own libraries and applications. So everything is totally separated. Any runtime stacks, anything that we need needs to be installed on that particular virtual machine. And when we say that containers are portable, people will say, yeah, virtual machines are also portable. I just can copy it from one place to another and redeploy. Yeah, but copying complete virtual machine also takes time, because we are copying everything from operating system to all the dependencies that we might have, and then finally copying the application. So on average, virtual machine is going to have anywhere from 50 to 100 gigabytes just for the basic setup, nothing too fancy. And it's going to take a lot of time for that to actually run properly, like to copy it and start a new virtual machine from the base image. Now, when we look at containers, we again are sharing infrastructure, and we have a shared host operating system. Now, on top of that, we have a container runtime, and then we have all the binaries and libraries that we require, and separate applications. Now, this is where things are getting really interesting. And this is how we have different layers on the top of the containers. So let's presume that we are going to run some web application in our container. We are going to run some web app that is dependent on Windows OS. So we are going to have a Windows Server Core as a layer 1. All the containers that we are going to use, that are going to use Windows Server Core as their core, as their basic image, are going to share this image together. We are not like sharing, having separate operating system for each container. Then on top of that, for all the containers that are going to require IIS to run, we're going to share the same layer. All the containers that have IIS requirement are going to be the same. Now, on top of that, we are going to do the binaries and libraries. Now, if we need ISP.NET, every application that requires ISP.NET is going to reshare those together. Like they're going to share that layer too. And we are going to share all those layers, all those requirements up to the stage that we have a unique application. Once we are actually deploying the unique application, then we are doing the separation and we are not having the problem of heavy lifting, copying everything together. Only that single part, only like for all the web applications that are sharing same stacks, same technology, same everything, the only unique part is going to be website part, where we are going to deploy just the app part that is going to be unique. This is basically giving us a really lightweight option to redeploy, because once we are like adding instances of the containers, like if we want to deploy our application, we are only deploying that small part, and we are using all those layers that are already there. So that's it. So one of the things that we are going to require to start talking about the containers is container registry. So what it is, container registry is basically a repository for storing container images. All those layers that we've seen previously can be placed inside the container image. And once we are building our solution, building our application, we're going to say what kind of dependencies we have, what kind of options we require for our applications to run. And then we are going to have all those layers mentioned that needs to be pulled and reused for our application. There are multiple public registries like Docker Hub that are free and easy to use. These are basically, Docker Hub is similar to GitHub for containers. You have a bunch of open source free code that you can reuse and set up in your projects. For private registries, we also have option to efficient and secure storage. So private registries are also an option for specific applications that we are building. Basically, Docker Hub is a good place to store something that is open source, and also to look into the images that are provided by vendors, like you have different Microsoft Windows, or you have different Linux images that are already pre-created there. So what options for containers in Azure do we have? So we have several ones. We have options for app services that can run containers. We have Service Fabric, Kubernetes, Container Instance, and we also have Batch, which is kind of a small part of it, but it's also worthwhile mention that it's supporting containers as well. But let's start from the beginning. Service Fabric is probably the oldest available container instance, container service in Azure. It supports both Windows and Linux containers. It's stateless and stateful microservices. So both use cases are supported, and we can also deploy it on Azure Stack, and on-prem environments as well. What people don't really know is that Service Fabric is kind of built into Azure Core, because a lot of Azure services, for example, Azure SQL Database, is using Service Fabric in its background. So Microsoft is using Service Fabric for a lot of services. A lot of Azure services are basically built on top of Service Fabric. So it's really cool, it's really good, really dependable service. The only downside for Service Fabric that I know is lack of support for different programming languages. As of now, C#, of course, .NET C# is supported, and there's a solid support for Java. Anything other than that, it's not a really cool place to go. You can probably make your solution work, but it's not officially supported. And for any kind of like production applications, it's not really recommended to have it, because if something goes wrong, Microsoft support will tell you this scenario is not supported, sorry, we cannot help you here. So if you're running C# or if you're running Java, you're probably good to go, and this is probably a really good option for you. However, if you're using anything else, if you require any kind of JavaScript or Python or whatever, this is not a really good place for you. Okay, moving on. Another option that we have are Azure Container Instances. This is the second service we had in Azure. They are really easy to deploy and run. We can deploy Azure Container Instances in a matter of few seconds. They are efficient, relatively cheap. One of the things that is downside for Azure Container Instances that this is not a managed service. So basically, for any kind of scaling or auto-healing, we need to have some third-party tool to handle it. In the past, we run Azure Container Instances and then set up Kubernetes on top of that to actually have it managing everything, like having control over nodes, adding additional instances, and so on. Nowadays, it's not so much like the scenario that we want to go with anymore. And to be honest, out of the options for containers in Azure, this would probably be the last one I would choose from. So in general, I wouldn't recommend going with this option, since we have different, better services running now. One of those services is Azure App Service. Now, Azure App Service is probably one of my favorite services in Azure. It's really cool. It's been really dependable, one of the older services. So if you wanted to run a web application or any kind of web API, Azure App Service is there. It's been a good, solid service, reliable service for many, many years. And I was really I was really excited when they announced containers there, that we are going to be able to run containers on top of Azure App Service. That was a really cool place, and I was really excited about it. For initial time, what we had were basically Azure App Service Linux containers, but since recently, it's not quite recently anymore. It's been since the beginning of the pandemic. We have also support for Windows Server containers as well. So that's a really cool thing. Azure App Service containers are really cool, easy to deploy, easy to manage. We have auto-scaling easily set up, same as for the regular Azure App Service. However, they are not the scenario that we want to have with complex architecture. If you have a microservices or something, Azure App Service will probably get too complex to manage, and it will take a lot of different tools to manage everything and have a mapping and everything in place. And probably the last and probably the coolest service that we can use right now are Kubernetes Scenarios. So Azure Kubernetes Service is a really cool one. The last option for the containers that were introduced in Azure. So we are talking about fully managed Kubernetes service. We have elastic provisioning, fast end-to-end development. We have identity and access management. It's Active Directory. This is also really cool, especially when we are talking about huge environments and having multiple Kubernetes clusters. So basically, when we have a single cluster and single instance, it's not really a big deal. We can have a management with username, password, whatever. But once we go to multiple clusters and having dozens or even hundreds or thousands of those services in place, it gets really easier to actually have identity and access management with Active Directory in place. And we have orchestration across 29 different regions. We can deploy to Azure Stack or IoT as well. Some part of the orchestration are we have options for the scheduling, affinity and anti-affinity. We have built-in health monitoring, failover. Basically, if health monitoring sees that something is wrong with one of the nodes, it will do automatic failover. It will do scaling. It will do. It has a built-in setup networking, DNS, auto discovery for our services. We have also coordinated app upgrades. We have complete managed service end-to-end, and it's really cool solution. Now, let's go with Azure portal, and let's see there what can we like built in with those. How can we like start with containers, and I'm gonna show an example or two on how you can deploy the application there as well. So if you're gonna work with containers, probably the first thing that we want to do is having a container registry. So here it is. I'm going to build a new container registry. So basically, this is where I'm going to store my container images before I deploy them, once I build them. So let's call it C#. My resource group is going to be C#. Let's see for the registry name. This is going to be C# available. I didn't do something good. C#. Okay, C# is or is not available. I'm gonna, in the meantime, I'm gonna change to West Europe. Okay, I'm choosing the region closest to me, so I'm gonna set it up like that. Okay, SKU, I'm gonna go with the, I don't know, basic, or let's go with standard. I don't know. I'm gonna delete this afterwards anyway, so doesn't really matter. So for this part, having networking with private networking and private endpoints, this is only available if you're using premium tier. If I go with the premium, these options are available, but I don't really need it right now. So I'm going to go with this option. Same thing for the encryption, tags, if you want to do some managing or reporting whatsoever. Doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna deploy this one right now, and we're good. And we are having it deployed. All right. This will probably take a minute or two. So, okay, this is actually done. Okay, that's cool. So, before we go to this one, let's deploy another service. I'm going to deploy app service as well. Or no, let's do Kubernetes first. Let's do Kubernetes service. And I'm going to deploy Kubernetes right now. I'm going to use the same resource group. Let's call the cluster C#. Europe, I'm going to leave everything at default, not adding additional nodes. Authorization is good. Networking is good. Integration is good. Tags, all right. Actually, let me show you something. If I did before the validation, like for the integration, I could, if I had a container registry that was already pre-built and I had ready images and everything in there, what I could do here is connect my my Kubernetes cluster to this container registry, and this container registry then will be able to pull the images automatically once they're deployed. But I'm going to do it differently, so I'm just going to leave this this on the default setting and say no integration whatsoever. Okay, validation passed. We're going to create it and go. All right. All right, this one is deploying. In the meantime, while this is deploying, let's go with the container registry and just go quickly over it. So for the container registry, We have a login server. We have a really important part that I need to do right now. So in the access key, if you're going to use it with Azure App Service, and I'm going to do it a bit later, you need to enable admin user. So for the deploy using app service containers and the Azure Container Registry, you need to enable admin user to actually run it correctly. Any other configuration will fail and it will not be accessible. For running it with Kubernetes, it's not really required, but for running it with Azure App Service, you need to set it up. What else do we have here? So basically, besides the login, we have different encryption, identity, networking options. These are basically depending on the tier and how much you can do with them. But also we have repositories where we're going to see the containers that are going to be built in and placed in our container registry. We have also options for a webhook to connect to different services, so we can like do a push or different options to help us update or change something. We can use these for multiple options, like we can do custom headers, we can do service URI, so we can use these to post it in some kind of like group or like, I don't know, Slack or Teams chat, Teams group, so you get the notification that something is changed and so on. Also, you can set up replication. Again, this is something for the premium SKU. So if you need highly available solution, you need to go with the premium, so you can have a secondary location where your container registry is going to be replicated. Okay, in the meantime, let's see where are we with the deployment in progress. Okay, this is still running. All right, this is still running. In the meantime, let's go to the repository. So I have a really simple app, really simple solution in Azure DevOps. This is like no demo application, it's just Node.js. Single line, this is just saying hello world on one. So basically nothing too fancy. We have a Docker file that says what we need to set up, how to build this, and that's basically it. A really simple application. Why I'm using this is because I want to have it relatively fast and not to wait for demos to execute for a long period of time. So that's basically it. Okay, so let's see where are we with this. This one is still running. This one is still deploying. So Kubernetes can take a bit to deploy. In the meantime, let's start with the build for our application. So let's create a pipeline, and I'm going to use Classic Editor. I'm going to use a Classic Editor. I'm going to get to YAMLs in some time, but let's keep with this one. So I'm going to use this one, this repository main branch. That is fine. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to build Docker containers. And in this one, then I need to select following. I need to select my Azure subscription. So I'm going to select subscription eventually. Okay, here we are. All right, Azure Container Registry. It should recognize my C# Container Registry. All right, this is good. I want to build image based on the Docker file. Everything cool. I want to push this image to the same repository, to some same container registry. And this is it. Like basically, I just selected the container registries I want to use. I want to do save and queue, save and run. And this should create a new pipeline for me that is currently deploying. So let's look at the tasks. What is happening with it? It's still preparing. Let's see what's going on with my... Okay, this one also finished. So this is cool. I have already this in place, and this is currently running my containers. So I have Kubernetes in place. I have everything ready for the second stage. While this is happening, let's do another one, and I'm going to do a web app. Let's go with app service. Oh, never mind. Web. Okay, web. So in the web app, I'm gonna go with again same resource group. I'm gonna go with I don't know, CSharpCorner. Is this one available? Yes, it is. Cool. I'm gonna go with the publish with the Docker containers. I'm gonna go with Linux. I'm going to go with West Europe just to be closer to my original location, so everything runs more smoothly. I'm going to leave this at the default settings. Single container, all right. We're going to use a quick start, that is fine. And just review and create. We are in a hurry. We want to do this as soon as possible. So let's create it and see where this is going on. Okay, so the build image and push image are completed, and we have our containers in place. So let's go to CSharpCorner. Let's go to container registry and see inside our repository, we have a new repository, no demo, with the tag 126, but it's just randomly generated. And we have our container ready, like it's there, it's ready for the setup. Okay, that's good. App service is done as well. Now, next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go, and if I refresh, I should see it, 2 services. Okay, this one is done. All right, I'm gonna go with the Kubernetes, and in the Kubernetes section, I'm gonna do deployment center. Now, what deployment center will do, it will give me an option to connect my code and set up the pipelines for me. So I'm going to start with Azure repos, and I'm going to say, all right, this is my dev talks. I'm going to use node demo. That's a good branch. That's fine. Let's go. It automatically recognizes my app, my Docker file. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go, okay. I'm going to use, okay, create a new namespace. And I'm going to use existing container registry. And we're good to go. I'm going to say, okay, create the pipeline for me. Let's see what happens. This is a really cool way to set up the deployment. Like it's easy, no sweat about it. You just say, this is one service, this is the second one, go connect them. And it's really nice that Azure basically does everything for you. You don't have to sweat about it, and it's easy, easy and quick to set up. Okay, in the meantime, let's see what's going on here. This one started out again. No, it didn't. Let's see, my configuration is going on. That is fine. Okay, while we are waiting for this to happen, I'm going to go to the web app. So for the web app, we can do similar things. Now, this is how we can set up, oh, sorry, not deployment center. This is how we can set up the deployment for, we can just pick up the private registry, we can provide the server URL, login information, and so on. But I'm not going to do it here. I'm not going to set it up from here. I'm going to actually set up the pipeline, release pipeline for this to actually happen. I'm going to set up the release pipeline. No, sorry. I'm going to say, oh, this is actually generated, right? All right. So this means that my, all right. Good thing I didn't start yet, because it would complicate things. So what happened is basically C#, when I set up the Kubernetes to do automatic connection, it actually started it out. And this is like the CI part. So this is building containers. And after that part is done, it's going to do a deployment as well. So let's look at this one. So remember the first task that we did. You remember what we had in there? We have two tasks. We had the build image and push image to my container registry. So basically, this is the same task. This is the same one I created initially and that I want to use to deploy. Now, why am I showing you this? Because it's always going to be the same task. It's always going to be the same build and push an image to a container registry. No matter what service in the background we're going to use, no matter what containers we choose to run, is it Azure Container Instances or Kubernetes or App Service or Service Fabric, we are always going to build a container and place it in a container registry. Then next step will be a different, because we are going to either deploy it to different services, so that part is different because service configuration is different. But the build part, creating the image and pushing it to container instance is, container registry, is always going to be the same step. So that's what I wanted to tell you. So I can basically, the first one, the one I created, I'm going to just delete it. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to say, yeah, I don't want this one anymore. I have different one that was already created. So if I go to C# and I see that this one is done, everything is fine, everything is running. In the meantime, release started for this one as well. And actually the release is finished. So if you go to this task, to this release, and say, okay, let's see what's happening in there, what's going on in there. I'm going to have a multiple tasks. I'm going to have a kubectl for set image pull secrets, generating Kubernetes manifest file, and finally manifest deploy. So this is basically the task. If I go back to my Kubernetes cluster and go to service and ingress, I should see, here it is, dev talks, some random number, because this is what happens when you do this deployment center preview, okay? So basically, when you do this, it creates this like random namespace for you. So I can see the service, and if I go to this IP address, oh, actually, my configuration is on port 8080, so I need to change the port. Here we are. Hello world. All good. All fine. All peachy. All right. So let's go to the next one. Next release. I'm going to, based on this build, the build we previously had, I'm going to create an initial release. So I'm going to do new release. And I'm going to say that it's basically Azure App Service deployment. All right. This is fine. I'm going to say that it depends on the previous build, so it can be triggered automatically based on that. So whenever this one is done, it will automatically start this one. All right. Now, what happens here is I'm going to say that I want to, deploy, fine, all right. I didn't do something right. All right, this is here. Okay, here. I need to select subscription. I'm going to say that I'm going to do different deployment. I'm going to do deployment web app for containers on Linux. I'm going to select my app service. So this is CSharpCorner. Registry name. Okay, I need to go to C#. All right, container registry. I'm going to use this one. So this is the registry I need to go to. And I need to provide repository name. So what is my repository name here? Let's say that it's going to be this one. Let's say that it's going to be node demo. We're going to use that one. And we're good to go. We can start the deployment. And this one will actually deploy my container, the same container. It will deploy it actually to app service this time. So we can go to the app service. and just check it out. Right now, it should still be like the default placeholder for the service. Nothing is deployed yet. And this one is queued. It's running on agent, and it will take a while to set it up. Now, all this is cool, all this is fine, but there is a better way to set up containers and set up the pipelines. I recommend you always go with the YAML pipelines. There are a couple of reasons why. But main one is basically you want to treat your pipeline same way as you treat your code. And this is exactly what you get with the YAML pipelines. YAML pipelines are going to set up your pipelines and store them in your source control together with your code, and you can see the versioning and everything else you would have for every other file inside your repository. So this is really cool part where you are handling your deployments as a code again. You have much better control over it. You have much better insight in the history, and also depending on release branches and like feature branches and different versioning options that you can have, you're gonna have different options to run your pipeline, because pipeline is, as it is treated as a code, it's going to be in the same state as the previous version of the code was. And you're going to have a situation where if you are going to previous version of the app for some reason to verify something, or you need it for some specific reason, and you need to roll back to that specific version, and you changed your pipeline multiple times since then, you don't have a problem, because the pipeline, when you go to that specific version of the code, is going to be in the same state as it was when that specific version of code was in use. You don't get that with those classic pipelines, because classic pipelines are always going to be applied as the latest one. All right, too much talk. Let's see how this actually happens. So I'm going to do a new pipeline, and I'm going to say I'm going to use Azure repos. This is the repository I want to use, and I want to deploy it to Kubernetes service. Now it's going to ask me for a couple of information. It's going to ask me for information where what I want to use. Like, I'm going to select my Azure subscription. Okay, I need to verify it. So this one, I need to verify my MFA. All right, that is good. All right, if it sees my cluster, it does. I'm going to do a new namespace. We're going to call it C#. C#, all right. Container registry is going to be C#. Everything good, everything fine. Let's go. Configuring my YAML file. Now, while we're doing this, I'm going to show you this. So basically what we have is really simple. We have app folder, Docker ignore, Docker file, package lock, package JSON server. That's basically really simple, nothing too much in it. So once I create the YAML file, it generated everything for me. So I have multiple tasks, I have stages in place, everything is ready. What I need to do is save and run. Now notice that it will tell me that it will add these 3 files to my repository. I'm fine with that, and I'm going to say, all right, save and run. All right, that started out. Now let's check what's going on with my app service. So this one should finish by now, and if I refresh, I have an error for some reason. Let me check what's going on. C#, no, that one, app service. Let's see what's going on with my container registry. So it will tell me why it doesn't run. So it doesn't recognize the login for some reason. All right, let's try this. C# image is going to be this one, tag is going to be this one, and we go save. Let's see what happens now. In the meantime, let's see what's going on with my build. Okay, it's building, it's pushing. All right. Again, this is the same task. You can see it's only in different shape. We are not using classic pipeline, we are using YAML pipeline. But again, we are always gonna build our image and push it to container registry. It's always gonna be the same step there. Okay, what's going on now? Oh, let me stop this one because it will, oh no, this is actually a good one. This one is going on, just one. All right, pipeline. No demo, all right. Okay, the second stage started. So it started deploying to my Kubernetes cluster. Let's see what's going on with this one. Let's refresh. Let's see what happens. Okay, I messed something up somewhere. Azure Container Registry. Does it read it? Yes, it does. All right. Let's see what's going on with the other one. We don't have too much time. I'm already past the date. So let's go with the services. We have a new cluster. So this one is the new one, the new instance of the service. Again, I need to set up, say it's going to run on 8080, and we have it ready. Now, quickly, I'm going to do something. I'm going to, in my pipelines, so if I go to my pipelines, I'm going to release, I'm going to delete everything. So I'm going to delete this one. Why? Because I don't want them to be triggered. I'm going to delete this one, I'm going to delete this one, and I'm only going to use the YAML one. So, so I'm going to delete this one as well. And then I'm going to say, all right. What I'm going to do right now is going to be, I'm going to go to my code, and I'm going to do change in the server. So I'm going to edit and say, hello, CSharpCorner. If I commit, this will automatically start the pipeline. And the pipeline should finish relatively soon. So it's doing a build automatically. Build stage started. Let me see what's going on with this one in the meantime. Container Classics did it refresh. Okay, it downloaded. It downloaded. Why? Never mind. Let's go to the pipelines. This one is almost done. Building is almost done. All right. Building is usually takes a bit. Now, the coolest part is the deployment should be done almost instantly. Why? Because, okay, my container obviously has some kind of dependency. It needs some kind of engine down there to tell you like what's required. It's going to have a Linux server, it's going to have an Nginx, and so on. So those components that are pre-required for my app to actually run. What happens now basically is that part is not going to be deployed next time, because it doesn't actually need to download everything for my deployment. It only needs to deploy what has changed. This is also what's really cool about the containers, is the speed of deployment that it's bringing, because it's basically, look at it, like imagine that we are building like complete container and taking everything with operating system and everything to deploy. It actually doesn't do that. It actually creates like download artifact, deploy, everything is done. For some reason, this task is still running, but it should be finished. So if I go to my cluster and if I refresh here we are. Everything's changed. It doesn't take a lot of time to deploy new container because everything is already there. Everything is already pre-built, and we are only deploying these layers, these packages that have changed since the last deployment. Okay, so that's basically it for what I had today. I don't know if we had any questions.
All right, Mustafa, that was a lot to cover in just 45 minutes, right?
Yeah, I tried to speed it up as much as possible.
Yeah, that's good. I think you started from very scratch and what it is, and you went on to Azure, did pipelines, right? So definitely a great session. Demo demons are always there, right? So we just can't ignore them. So we do have many questions. Let's take a few of them if it makes sense. These are quite generic. Maybe let's take this one. Which restart policy is typically the best choice for long-running tasks that service request?
That's really difficult to say. Like, it really depends on the use case. There are many different options, like what kind of tasks, what kind of services you're running. What do you use for the long-running tasks in the first place? And also, what are the performance issues, like do you actually need to restart them because they get stuck, or you need occasional refresh, or for each run you need to restart a service? It really depends on multiple factors. Before you can reach out to me on Twitter, and I'll try to be more help.
I wonder, Mustafa, why don't you have your Twitter name in the name? Usually people have it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
so I had it somewhere, I think, in the first slide, but I skipped through. I usually have it, I think. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. So here's my
Twitter. Also, I edited your name so people
can cool. I didn't. That's nice. That's nice. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. So we have one question. Let's take one question from this. Patricia, she says, do we have option to handle private Docker container? I think, is it
absolutely. This is exactly why we have a Azure Container Registry. This is basically our private Docker container registry. Like we have our own like closed world. Like what we deploy in our private container registry, it's not accessible to anyone else. This is our Docker container registry, like private completely, and we don't have it, like we don't share it with anyone else.
That's great. Let's take one final question that says, can we create service fabrics for Linux? I think it's Linux, right?
I don't think so. I think this is only for Windows, as far as I'm concerned. I don't have experience to the requirements I had was running it on Windows always. Things might have changed recently. The speed of changes in Azure are incredible. Like every time I start working, I see something new. But let's say that, like, as far as I know, as I know, no, it's only Windows.
Okay, so we have many more questions. They are more related to containers, Docker. I don't think we have a lot of time to take them. Does this make sense? Like, is there any possibility to do AKS MySQL DB purely replication in Azure from one region to another? Ideally, should be possible.
Replication in Azure from one region to another. Well, it's that. Yeah, definitely. If you have like AKS on one side and AKS on the other side, and have like pods running, the database itself, it should be able. You should be like, it should behave like any other MySQL server whatsoever. Like if you have it running in any other option, it should be able. Now, what you need to consider in this case is how you set up the storage for your containers, because the default storage for containers is not persistent. Each time you do deployment or rest of the service, you're going to lose the data. So you want to mount some kind of persistent storage for running databases in containers.
Definitely. And before we go, we have, I think, one thing you would definitely like to go and talk is your very famous book that's on Azure Networking Cookbook. Right?
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely go and check that out. Mustafa says that it has been downloaded many thousands of times. Right?
Yeah.
It's free, right, Mustafa? It's entirely free.
Yeah, the book is free, and it's available on multiple languages. Besides English, you can download it in German, Japanese, Spanish, and French, I think.
That's amazing. So definitely go and check this book. It's written by Mustafa. He loves to write books. That's what he's known in the community, right?
Yeah,
so Mustafa, that was a great session. Before we go ahead and conclude, right? Apart from all these books, MVPs, technical sessions, your day-to-day full-time job, what are your hobbies? What do you do apart from all this?
Pretty much nothing else. Like
makes sense. You don't get time, right?
So basically, I've worked for a company full time. I do my 8 hours diligence. I try to be engaged in communities, so I try to at least twice a week deliver a session or write something online or something. So at least twice a week I have some kind of community activity, sometimes even more depending on the period. And on top of that, I usually write at least one book at a time. So that's kind of like taking a lot of my time. Let's say that besides that, I enjoy playing guitar, bass guitar
That's
to be
cool.
exact, and also enjoy occasional Xbox game now and then.
That's great. Yeah, these things that we do, right? Playing guitar, Xbox. Which is a favorite game? Flight Simulator. Did you try that one? Flight Simulator.
Oh, that's that's an amazing job. That Flight Simulator is an excellent game that came out last year, and it's a game changer completely. Like the details Microsoft delivered with that one, like it's completely insane. It's bringing virtual reality to our homes.
Yeah. I've seen people sharing a lot of screenshots and their experience. Really looks amazing. I hope I get some time to play with that. All right, Mustafa. Any final things you want to conclude before we?
I took enough of your time. I'm very proud.
No, it's okay.
That will be it. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone tuning. Thank you, Mustafa. Thank you so much for your time. I always love to host you, and I think in the next couple of quarters, I'm hosting you a couple of more times too. One definitely for the IT Security Virtual Conference that definitely Mustafa is helping us to organize. So thank you so much for that. Please go ahead and submit your sessions. The call for speakers is still open. We would love to host you there too. So thank you so much, everyone who has joined. We'll see you next week, some other live show. Thanks, Mustafa. Have a nice day, and yeah,
thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.